Welcome to the Anxiety Relief Podcast. I'm your host, Ross Rolfe, the Anxiety Coach, here to help you conquer anxiety and build a calm, confident life. In each episode, we'll explore the tools, stories, and insights to help you take control of anxiety and live life on your terms. Without further ado, let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to the Anxiety Relief Podcast. If anxiety keeps coming back for you, and even though you might feel you understand it, even though you know it's not dangerous, even though you're doing everything you can to cope, but it's still staying there and you still feel stuck, this episode is for you. Because today I want to talk about something most people are never told about to do with anxiety. It's not that anxiety itself that keeps the cycle going. It's what we do after the anxiety shows up. And the tricky part is the things we do feel sensible, right? They feel protective and even responsible, but they're quietly teaching the brain the wrong lesson. If you've listened to the first episode or any of the other episodes before this one, you will already know what anxiety is. And you know the symptoms and what they feel like. This episode answers a different question though. Why does anxiety keep repeating even when you understand it? The answer sits in something called safety behaviours. You may be sat there thinking, what are safety behaviours? Well, a safety behaviour is anything you do to try and make anxiety go away to feel safer or to stop something bad from happening. And here's the important bit. Safety behaviours are not stupid. They're not weak. They make complete sense. They reduce anxiety in the short term, but they keep anxiety alive long term. So I'm going to give you a little analogy here, and I often use this with my clients because it's a really good practical way of explaining anxiety to them. But essentially it's like this. Imagine you have a smoke alarm that's very sensitive, and every time you make toast, it goes off. Now, you don't just remove the alarm because you want safety. So instead, every time it goes off, you fan it, open windows, you check for smoke, or you call someone to ask if it's dangerous. That alarm quietens down. But what has the alarm learned? The toast equals danger. Because every time it beeps, you treat it like an emergency. Anxiety works in the exact same way. I'm going to give you now some common safety behaviours that people use. One of these is body scanning, and this is where you're constantly checking your heart, breathing, dizziness, or sensations that you feel within your body. Reassurance seeking, where you're asking others for reassurance or are you going to be okay? Have they had this before? Googling symptoms, using that Dr. Google, which is never going to help your anxiety, or posting in forums or on Facebook and all the other places. Avoidance. And this is another massive safety behavior, especially as your anxiety starts to get a grip with you. Avoiding things will not make your anxiety go away. You are literally just training yourself that you can't do them things. So by not doing things, leaving early, planning your escape routes, that is a safety behavior. Having over control. So this is where you're basically trying to calm yourself immediately, breathing perfectly, monitoring your thoughts, but you're trying to be in control of everything going on. You want control of the situation. These things feel like you're coping, but your brain doesn't actually hear that as being coping. What your brain hears is, good thing we did that because that was dangerous. Yeah, so good thing we did whatever the action was you did or didn't do. You stopped yourself from doing if it's avoidance. But it's saying, good job we didn't do that or did do that because the situation that the anxiety was coming up about was dangerous. But realistically, it's not, is it? The amount of events, situations that come up that cause us anxiety are not actually dangerous, especially in the modern world. So think of anxiety like an overprotective bodyguard. If every time they shout and you immediately run away or ask them what's wrong or cancel plans, what would they learn? They'd learn that shouting works. So they would shout more, not because they're bad, but because they think they're helping. The problem is not anxiety, and the problem is that anxiety is being treated as a threat. The brain learns that the behavior is the threat, but not logic. And you can tell yourself you're safe all day long. But if your actions say the opposite, that feeling will be totally stopped and your brain will keep protecting you. Your cortex, your front side of your brain, you can't just outthink anxiety. So if you're just saying, oh, I will be okay, but you're not going out, you're not going to do that thing that feels uncomfortable, you're staying inside, you're not going on flights because you feel you can't do it, you're telling yourself that you can't do it. That action or inaction that the anxiety is causing is helping fuel that. It's reinstating it, that event you're avoiding, the thoughts you're avoiding are anxiety. So here's a reframe that changes everything. So anxiety fades when your brain learns it can feel this and still be safe. Now, this isn't that you have to get rid of the feeling, but it's that you can carry it and continue. And the safety comes from experience, not control. Another analogy I like to give around this to make sure it really does stick in people's minds is imagine you were learning to swim. And if you ever let go of the side of the pool, you would never teach your body that it can float, right? So you get in the pool and you just always hold onto the side. How are you ever going to learn that you can float in water? You would never learn, would you? Just like you would never learn to swim if you never even got in the swimming pool. You have to physically do the action. Regardless of how scary it is when you're first starting, the only way to learn is jumping in. And no, I'm not advocating that you just go to a pool and jump in if you don't know how to swim. Obviously, that would be really stupid, right? Because you do need to learn how to swim. But if you went and got in the pool, got down, in the steps, but you always stayed holding to the side, you would never learn to swim. So that's the point I'm trying to get across there. And that works the same with anxiety. If you always just avoid what it is you're scared of, how would you ever expect to be able to get over that? And yes, if you had an anxiety that was of spiders or something like that, and it was something that's rarely going to happen, and just going to see a few around the house, but it was like specifically tarantulas or something, like that's not a life debilitating or minimizing problem, is it? It's not something that's going to impact all areas of your life, right? But we're on about anxiety here. That can ruin your life. It can stop you going for the jobs you want. It can make you not have the friends, or you lose friends over time. It can make you not be able to go the places you want to go. It can make you feel like you're dying or unwell all the time. There's so many parts to this, but you have to be willing to tackle it, to take an action. Now, here are 3 things that you can do after this episode that you can take away from this and actually use. Now, I don't want to bombard you with loads of techniques because ultimately it'd be pointless, because what would happen is if I gave you too many things in one go to use, you won't really be using them consistently enough to get the benefit from them. And where you can easily go wrong here is, for example, if I taught you the physiological sigh, if you literally use that like once, twice, it's unlikely to have the desired effect. However, through practice, repetition, and doing it consistently, that alone is enough to significantly reduce your anxiety. But if I was to give you 5 different ones and you just use 5 different ones over 5 days, that's less likely to work. because it's that consistency that matters, and you have to be using the right techniques at the right time. So the obvious question would be, when is the right time? Now, we can't work through all of that today, but we will do it throughout the other episodes. If you have listened to any of the other podcasts, please do follow the show and rate it. Give it a 5-star rating if you enjoy it, because that will help it get out to more people. It's very difficult when you first start a podcast to actually get it out to people and let it get a grip. So every single one of you that's taken the time to listen to this is massively helping, not just me to make this show as good as possible for you, but you're helping other people beat their anxiety, because the algorithms will put it out to them. So you've done a good deed if you do that. So thank you again for your time. Now, here are some practical takeaways you can use when anxiety shows up. Now, it's really important that this is going to be based around the safety behaviors, because that's what I'm talking about in this episode, okay? But you cannot judge your own safety behaviors, all right? So don't be judgmental of them, but just notice them, because the awareness is what gives you the opportunity to then change it. So when your anxiety shows up, ask, what do I do when anxiety shows up? You may notice you have a particular habit that you do to try and mitigate it, or that you tell yourself makes it feel, so that it makes it feel that you can cope, like a coping mechanism. In anxiety, we often refer to these as being like emotional crutches, for example, or a crutch, something that you're doing as a way of coping with it. Now, there's loads around this area that we can go into in another episode, because I don't want to make it too long. But this is what you want to do when it's showing up. So you would say, what do I do when anxiety shows up? And then you pick one small safety behavior that you want to start to soften. So this isn't just getting rid of it straight away, because that may be too difficult or may cause you too much worry at this time. So we're not going to completely remove it straight away, but we're going to reduce it slightly. And if you body scan every minute, for example, then try and do that less. So what about once every 5 minutes, once every 10 minutes? If you're always Googling, delay it by 10 minutes. Another way of this is you add in a normal action. So when the anxiety is present, you do one ordinary thing anyway. So for example, your anxiety shows up, and rather than doing what you may normally do, you may go and get a blanket, wrap yourself up, go to bed or something like that. Do something different. Break that habit cycle. Go and make a drink. Stand up. Do a jumping jack. Walk into another room. Continue a conversation or start a conversation. That will teach your nervous system that nothing bad is happening. On the flip side of that, if you always do a specific behavior when your anxiety shows up, that is ingrained within you, and it is just fueling the anxiety, because the second you do that habit, your brain knows that you does that whenever your brain is telling you something dangerous is happening. So that would fuel it and continue that cycle. So you have to break it. And that is an easy thing to do just by doing something different. Now, what's an important point with this is it's not about forcing yourself. It's about gently showing your brain you can handle discomfort. Progress is the repetition. It's not perfection. And I can't stress this point enough. I used to be a real perfectionist, and that held me with my anxiety for many, many years. I used to be a real perfectionist, but actually it's the action. Just doing the action is better than not doing it because you think you can't do it right. People often say to me when they first start doing breathing techniques, for example, that they don't feel they're doing it right. It's not that you're not doing it right necessarily, unless you're completely and utterly doing it an odd way. It's that you haven't done it enough for it to have the impact. Or you're in the mindset that you believe it's not going to work for you. I'll go into that mindset side in another episode, because I could go on forever about it. But it is important to stress that if you're going into any technique to try and reduce your anxiety, get relief from your anxiety, and you've already decided or you're thinking it won't work, chances are it won't, because you're telling yourself it won't work. We massively, massively underestimate the power of our minds, massively underestimate them. In another episode, I'm going to go into some studies where essentially they had two different groups of people, and they told one group that there was gluten in their food. The other group they told there wasn't, and these are all people who suffered with gluten intolerance. What do you think happened? So the group that were told it was in their food come up with hives, general discomfort, DMV, the works, because they were told there was glucose in there. The other group that were told there was none had no symptoms come up. The truth was there was no gluten in any of it. Now that is the power of your mind. It can literally create the symptoms. And I can give lots and lots more examples similar to this that are real research, by doctors, etc., world-renowned people. And that's proof. That is proof. Your mind is extremely powerful. And heck, it's your mind that's creating anxiety, but it stores it in your body. And what we're going to do in other episodes, I'm going to go through some of the physical things you can do with your body that will also help massively reduce your anxiety. Because it's really important that you understand it can be reduced. You're not alone. You are not the only person to have anxiety. And you are not the only person that won't be able to get over it. That's just your mind telling you that. People often think that their anxiety is different to other people's, that it's worse, that it's different for them because of things that have happened in their life prior to having the anxiety, their childhood, traumatic events. But the truth is, the way anxiety works, with it being linked to your nervous system, your brain, it works the same. Yeah, everyone can have different symptoms come up, but ultimately it is the same. Also, in later episodes, I'm also going to go through the impact of being diagnosed with anxiety and how that can affect you. Spoiler alert, just because you're diagnosed with anxiety by a doctor, that does not mean that A, you're stuck with it for life, B, that makes it any worse than someone who's not been diagnosed, and C, that you're doomed or anything like that. No. It doesn't really mean anything other than the fact that you've been given a label which you now feel is part of your identity. And again, and in later episodes, when we've got a bit more time, I'll go through all the neurological levels of change and how your identity and who you believe you are will also impact how quickly and how well you get over your anxiety, or if at all. And why I say if at all, if you constantly believe you're an anxious person and that you can't get over it and that is part of who you are, or that you use it as a reason to not be able to do things in life when you don't want to do them, right? So and I don't mean this by like when you want to do something but can't because your anxiety is that bad. I mean, for example, you get invited to go out with some friends, and rather than saying to them that you don't want to do what they are doing, you blame it on your anxiety. So you say you feel too anxious to go out, for example. That is using it as an excuse. But again, if you're holding on to being anxious as part of your identity, that makes it more difficult to get over. But I really want to stress this. You can get over it. There is not one person who listens to this podcast that cannot get over anxiety. I absolutely guarantee it. But the good news is these are going to be coming each week. So there's plenty of value you can get from these. And I've got loads and loads of guests lined up as well that you will be getting as the weeks progress that have all got really impactful, insightful stories, tools and techniques and strategies that you can use. So I want to thank you for listening. And if this episode helped you, I want you to know that you are not broken. Your nervous system is doing its job and it just needs new information. If you want to support this podcast in a calm, non-pushy, practical way, you're welcome to join my free community over at the Anxiety Relief Hub, which is a Facebook group. You can join that. There's extra content in there, which is exclusive to there. You can also download my free ebook, The Anxiety Relief Roadmap, from my website, and that walks you through various processes, tools, techniques, step by step, that you can get relief from your anxiety. And if you found this episode helpful, please follow the podcast, leave a rating, as it really helps this podcast reach more people who need it. And that will be you making that impact. You don't have to fix anxiety. You just have to stop proving it right. I'll speak to you in the next one. Thank you for tuning in to the Anxiety Relief Podcast. I hope today's episode left you feeling a little more calm, confident, and in control. Remember, small steps every day can lead to a big transformation in your life. If you found this episode helpful, please don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who you think might benefit. For more tools and resources, head over to my website at www.rossrolf.com. And don't forget to join the Anxiety Relief Hub on Facebook, which is a supportive community where you can connect, share, and grow. Until next time.